Hello neighbors, it's Brad here from Etrailer, and today we are taking a look at installing the Etrailer Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2023 Ford Explorer. This is what it's going to look like when the hitch is installed, and the great part about this one is it's going to be a hidden cross tube, meaning that pretty much all of the hitch is going to be hidden except for the receiver tube opening and the safety chain loop. So you get all the functionality of a trailer hitch without really taking away from the aesthetics. Now this one is a 2" by 2" receiver tube opening, which is going to be a great option. It's really the standard when it comes to trailer hitch receivers. So when choosing a bike rack, cargo carrier, or ball mount, you're going to have tons of options available. All of those accessories are going to stay in place with a 5/8 pin and clip. Now this is not included with the hitch, but many times when you pick up accessories, they'll have a pin and clip included. And if it's going to be an accessory that you keep on here long term, whether it be a bike rack or a ball mount, I'd look at a locking pin and clip. That way you can lock that in place, and it's a good deterrent for anyone walking by. They can't just take out that pin and clip and take those accessories with them. If you plan on towing a trailer with your Explorer, you're going to be hooking up safety chains, and our safety chain loops are just a rolled style here. Super easy to hook up your standard S hook. Even a larger clevis style is going to be no problem. Now, it's very important to make sure that you're adhering not only to the weight capacities of our hitch, but also what the vehicle is capable of towing. So first thing, check your vehicle's owner's manual to see what it's rated to tow, and then compare that with the capacities of our hitch. The hitch is rated pretty well at a gross trailer weight rating of 6,000 pounds, and that's going to be the weight of the trailer plus the accessories loaded onto it. As far as tongue weight, also really good at 600 pounds. That's a downward pressure on the inside of the receiver tube opening. So that really translates to your suspended accessories. So bike racks and cargo carriers, with 600 pounds, you could put a 4-bike rack on here fully loaded up, or a cargo carrier loaded up for vacation, and I don't really worry too much. Now this isn't one that you can use with a weight distribution hitch, so you are going to be limited to those numbers, but again, that's still pretty decent. Some accessories can stow in a vertical position, and this measurement is to make sure that we can get those in a folded position without making contact with the fascia. So from our center of our hitch pin hole to the furthest point of our fascia, it's about 3 inches. So I have zero worries that you're going to have any issues with those folded up. Now, with that in mind, sometimes when those are folded up, it's going to block your license plate, potentially your rear view camera, and you are going to need to fold those down in order to open up the rear hatch. But as far as working with the vehicle, shouldn't have a problem. Another important measurement is going to be our ground clearance. From the top of the receiver tube opening to the ground, it's going to be 15 inches. And what does that mean for you? Well, if you're choosing a ball mount that's a fixed ball mount, you're going to want to get your trailer as level as possible. So the best way to determine that is get your trailer, measure from the ground to the top of the coupler when you have it perfectly level, and then compare that with our measurement, and then based on that you'll be able to determine the rise or drop necessary. On this one, I would imagine it's going to be a slight rise, not by much, depending on the trailer, and a great way to have to avoid that at all is get an adjustable ball mount. Now, chances are you're here to see what the installation is going to be like to get this hitch installed. And this one, it's a little bit tricky. There's a decent amount to it as far as lowering down the exhaust to get the heat shields down and make room for the hardware to go up. You do need to modify the heat shields. There is going to be trimming required. And that's really going to come down if it's going to be a little more difficult if you have the kick sensor. Now, you can use the kick sensor if you have it installed on your vehicle once it's installed, so you shouldn't have any issues there. But it's just kind of a unique style with the heat shield and kind of getting it all up. None of it was particularly hard, but overall it's not the most straightforward hitch. So if you're a DIYer that's mechanically inclined, you should be able to tackle this with not a whole lot of issues. But you know, if you watch the video and say, you know what, I don't have the time, the place, the tools, or even the want to do that myself, I totally get it, but don't let that hinder you from getting a hitch installed. So if that's the case, you can use our dealer locator to find someone close to you. You'll simply put in your zip code and find a list of shops near you that can get the hitch installed, so you can be out on the road enjoying your adventures. For you DIYers, stick around, let's get this hitch installed. A few things before we get started. There's going to be a decent amount of hardware that we're going to be removing from our heat shield and just underbody panels, so I highly recommend having a nice organized spot to keep everything. And also something that you're going to want to take in consideration is we're going to be lowering down the exhaust, so make sure that the exhaust is nice and cool before starting to work on it. So lowering down the muffler is going to give us access to the frame rail where we're eventually going to be bolting up the hitch and also remove our heat shield. So step one, go to each of your isolators, and at the top of the isolator there's going to be a 10mm bolt, and we'll get that taken down So just make sure you're not directly under the muffler, as this can drop a little bit. Now once the 10mm bolt is out, these are hooked into the frame, so just push up and twist it clockwise on our driver's side, or on our passenger side, and we'll get that separated. We'll do the same on the other side. And then we still have 2 isolators by our subframe, and we're gonna pop these off, but this is gonna drop the exhaust down, so I recommend having something to support it. It's not gonna put damage on it downstream. So if you have a block of wood or even the box that your hitch came in, something to just support it once we pull these off, recommend putting that in place. So I'll grab a cam buckle strap to support this. Now to get these pried off, sometimes they can be fairly easy, and using just a long flat head or a pry bar, you can use the exhaust as leverage. Now you can get the top or the bottom, but something I'd recommend is these over time, just with heat, will kind of almost fuse to these. So if you move this around a little bit to kind of loosen that, that'll help, but also putting a little soapy water or even a silicone spray on these will make it a lot easier to pry off and also get them back on later during reinstallation. So just kind of push this. And again, just be careful, because once you start to get these isolators off, the exhaust is going to want to drop down. So make sure you're not getting it on your head. Now, if you can't get great leverage, you can kind of go from the back side here, but you can also, these are pretty flexible and definitely can move. So if you wedge your screwdriver or your pry bar in here, sometimes that'll help as well. And we'll get both of these taken down. So with this drop down, the cam buckle strap is nice because I can adjust this down and it'll still support it. But this is going to give us plenty of room to get our heat shields taken down, and that's going to be our next step. Now, each of the heat shields will come down so we can trim it. It will be going back up, and to get these pulled down, you're going to find the factory studs have 10mm nuts located underneath where the muffler was, but there's also 2 screws on the outside edge of your fascia. So we have one here and one that's tucked back on the wheel well liner. These are 7mm, so when you're going underneath your vehicle, grab the 10mm socket as well as that 7. Now this may be kind of stuck on those studs, so if you need to, you can use that flathead screwdriver or a pry bar to just get these off the studs. And once you get a few of them, it'll be a little bit easier for the others, but as you can see, this one's pretty tight on there, so if you need some leverage to be able to pop that off, you can take that screwdriver to it. So we'll take this one down. I'm going to get my other one also removed, and then we're going to be doing some trimming. Now the trimming that we're going to be doing on the heat shields is going to make an access hole for our hardware to slip through, and then this long slit is for the hitch to go through. And as far as cutting, you can use a bunch of different methods of what you have available. You could use a hole saw, probably a 2-inch for this. You could use an angle grinder if you have some skills with that. This long slit, same thing. So what I'll be doing is I have a multi-tool here. These work really good to get some nice clean cuts. And we're going to be doing this on both sides. So just make sure that you follow the measurements and the instructions. It'll be pretty close. On this long slit, I would actually go a little bit, they have 1/2 inch. I might go a little bit bigger than that. So we'll get this all trimmed out. So make sure you have your eye protection on as you do this. Now with this one cut out, I'm not going to get it mounted up quite yet, but I do want to mock it to make sure that we got this all dialed in properly. And the reason I'm not putting it up quite yet is because this can be really sharp, and we're going to be feeding hardware through here, so we want to make sure that we're not, having something in the way. But the main thing is we have the slot open where the hitch is going to go, and if you have a little bit of extra over, that's fine, because it'll kind of bend as we go up. And the main thing is we have this access hole open, so everything's looking good here. I'm going to do the other side, and then we'll just continue on. We'll put this up a little bit later. If you have a kick panel sensor that's located on the back side of the fascia, you just reach up there, and if there's some plastic that's mounted up to it, we're going to want to separate this because we do need to trim a little spot on our fascia to make room for the hitch. And in order to get that flex to get the kick sensor out of the way and not damage it in the process, we're going to be drilling out our rivets. So there's 4 of them here, And we do get new rivets included in our hitch. So if you've never drilled these out or put new rivets on, I'll show you how to do that. Just get a drill bit that's slightly larger than the opening of the rivet and just go straight through it. Now, more times than not, once you start drilling, it'll kind of pull that backside off with it. If not, you can walk the bit a little bit and it should catch it and pull it out. And on ours, we got most of it out, but I can probably take a trim panel tool and get this off. So I'll just try again with my drill bit. There we go. So just like that. Now, something that I realized, which is helpful for those of you that do have the kick sensor, this plastic is still located here. And the kick sensor, if you were to have one, is just a small cable that sits in this track here. So if you have that, what you're gonna do is take the kick sensor and you can pop that off. And what they recommend doing is taking off 2 fasteners that are located right up here. And that way we can get it completely out of the way. If you pull the wire across, we're going to be cutting through here, and you're going to be able to retain that kick sensor wand, but we are going to be cutting this. So what we'll do is get this all trimmed out, but we need to cut through both of these. So just make sure kick sensor's off the side. If you don't have it, you really don't have to worry too much. But with that being said, double check in this section. If you don't have the cable like ours today, you don't have to drill out those rivets. It's no big deal. We'll be putting ours back in, the new ones. I've marked out where we're going to be trimming, and it's 3.5, which is going to account for the hitch width, and then 4.5 back. And these are approximate. We may need to trim a little bit more, but generally these are pretty accurate. Just remember, as you're cutting through, we're going to be going through that back plastic as well. So make sure if you do have that kick sensor, it's off to the side. Multi-tool works really, really good for this, so I'll get this cut out. Once you make your cuts, I go through with a file just to clean this up. It's going to be something that you see every time you're using your hitch and loading accessories, so take a little extra care here just to clean it up, and that way you have a nice finished product. On each side of the frame rail, we're going to be removing this factory bolt. We get a new bolt in our hardware with the hitch, so we'll be taking this down. 21mm socket, we'll remove it. For our next step, we're going to be getting our 2 carriage bolts on each side in place, and we'll be using our pull wires. So if you've never used these before, it's actually a pretty nice system. It's easy to do as well. So take one of your pull wires, and we're going to start on the forwardmost hole and take the coiled end and feed it back towards the larger hole. And just pull enough of that coiled section down to where we can take our spacer block. We'll feed that over, and you can put that in the frame rail, and then take your carriage bolt and thread that on the coiled section. And then you can pull this in the frame rail as well, and that should drop in place. Now keep the pull wire in place. That's going to really help us out when we raise the hitch up. That way if we bump this into the frame rail, we don't have to fish it out. This will keep it in place and we'll be able to guide it up. Now for this hole, it's a similar concept, but it's a reverse fish wire. It's actually a little bit easier. So first we'll get our pull wire unraveled, and then grab our block and our carriage bolt, and we'll just hold on to this section here. You can feed the spacer block on. Take your coiled section and feed up the carriage bolt. And then that drops in place. Now we're just going to repeat the same process on the other side to get our carriage bolts passed in. Now it's time to get our heat shield back in place, and we'll feed the coiled or our fish wires through this hole and this hole. And when we put this back up, I'll show you the stud that's located here. We're not going to put the nut on there until after the hitch is raised up, but the rest of them can go into place. So we'll slide these through. And again, we're going to make sure that you don't put the nut on this one. the hitch actually accounts for that. So, but the rest of them, we can get all in place and tighten down. Now, with an extra set of hands, we're going to get our hitch raised in place, and there's a few things you're going to want to take care of. The wire that we have, refer to the instruction manual of how to route that, but we want to make sure that this is going to be in place so it's still usable. It should go in between the bottom and the upper part here, so it'll feed through this area. And as we raise this up, I would recommend having your large bolts with your flat washer ready on each side. That way we can get a few threads started when we pass it up, and it'll hold the hitch in place. As far as feeding your pull wires through, we're going to feed them through the corresponding holes. That circle will be where our stud goes through, so just make sure that you're feeding the pull wires through the forwardmost holes. We'll slide this back far enough to where this will go kind of behind the fascia, and you may have to peel the fascia back a little bit for space. But once that's in place, what we can do is raise this up. And on the underbody here, you do have to kind of raise this, so you are going to be stretching this fascia a bit, but we'll push this up. The heat shield is causing a little bit of issues. I had to go back a little bit further, and if you push this, it should start to bend it out of the way. Main thing is we get this bolt started, just a few threads, and that's going to hold this up for us and make it a lot easier to get the rest of the hardware in place. Now, once that's started, you should have enough thread to be able to get your serrated flange nut started, so you can pull the pull wire down. And it's important not to pull it back up, so something I do just to make sure is you can use the pull wire to just kind of hold this in place. If you can get a thread or two started, that's great. But if that's not the case, if you're struggling like I am, I did kind of get this started, what you can do is draw this up. I don't know the socket offhand yet, but that'll pull this up, making it a lot easier. So our goal is to get the serrated flange nuts started on all of our studs. Now we're going to snug our hardware down. We don't need to get crazy here because we are going to come back with a torque wrench, but we want to draw this up. So the large bolt that we put in place is a 15/16. So I'll snug that real quick. And then our serrated flange nuts are going to be a 3/4. So we'll go through and get those tightened down as well. Now we'll go through and we are going to torque down our hardware. Now the torque settings are found in the instruction manual, and they do change from one set of hardware to the other. So the larger one's obviously a larger torque setting than our flange nuts. Now, if you need a torque wrench, you can generally go to an auto parts store and rent one for free, but long term, this is going to make sure that we have our hardware in place. It's going to be tight enough to use it going down the road and tow weight, but also not too tight, putting stress on the hardware. Now, if you're going to be renting one, I highly recommend getting a 1/2-inch torque wrench. That's going to allow you to get up to that torque setting for the large bolt. With our hardware torqued down, the hitch is officially installed. And as far as this nut, you're going to see that this isn't going to line up, and I really don't expect it to be perfectly centered. So if you want, you can put this on. It's not really going to do anything, but sure, why not? Now, with this being said, it's time to get our exhaust put back up. Just in the reverse order that we took it off. And then I'll show you how to use a rivet gun to get these rivets put back in place. Now, if you haven't already, on the back side, the leftover bit of the rivet may be on there. Just get that removed, and we'll sandwich these together and put this section of the rivet through. And you are going to need a rivet gun for this. And you're going to want this sandwich, so I'd try to pinch here to keep it as tight as possible and have this flange flush against the bottom. And your rivet gun, all it's doing is pulling this center section down and kind of crushing that back side. So think of it kind of like a drywall anchor to a certain extent. And so we'll squeeze, keeping that pressure again, pinching these. And then once you clamp that down, generally that tip will break off. And once you have those rivets in, all it's left to do, load up your accessories, put it in your pin and clip, and you're ready to hit the road. Hopefully this video helped you get the hitch installed on your vehicle, and throughout the process, if there's anything that I missed or wasn't clear about that I could have done better, or if it was helpful, let us know in the comments. That really helps me make sure that the next videos I make are the best for neighbors like you, and you can do this at home. And also, once it's installed, if you're out there on adventures, cargo carrier, bike rack, or pulling a trailer, and you want to snap some pictures and share that with us, also go ahead and do that. My name's Brad. Thanks for watching the look and installation of the Etrailer Trailer Hitch Receiver on a 2023 Ford Explorer.